Hey there, this is Mr. Ammerman talking about another component of the very important parts of our humanity, our culture, and that is language. And a very important part of our language is the area in which we grew up. And a lot of times in the area in which we grew up, we have what's called a regional language. And a lot of times, depending on where you are in the country or in the world, a lot of people may think you talk funny. So today we're going to take a look at that phenomena, the regional language, and why some people may say that you talk funny. And when you explain kind of this concept, we're looking at dialect. Dialect is the regional language used by us in our area. So if you come from another part of the country, you may be bringing your own regional dialect with you. If you've lived in central Pennsylvania your entire life, then you probably use certain words that maybe people in the country, other places, maybe other parts of the world don't use that particular term. So let's think about the three ways in which language is determined. Your vocabulary. What do your words mean? How do you pronounce these words? Sometimes people pronounce certain words certain ways, and it just baffles folks. And we'll talk about some of those a little later. And syntax. How do you arrange those words? So your vocabulary, your pronunciation, and your syntax. Now think about it. One of the major reasons why there's disagreements in the world is because people don't communicate clearly with one another. And if our vocabulary is in question, if our pronunciation is in question, and our syntax is off, then that causes a lot of potential issues with people trying to communicate and trying to solve problems. So your vocabulary is really determined by three factors. Your age, how old are you? Certain words mean certain things to people of different ages. Secondly, where you grew up. So a word to you in central PA may mean something different to you if you grew up in California or Texas or Minnesota or Oregon. And thirdly, where did your ancestors come from? So a lot of times your ancestors bring words with them, and then you learn those words from your parents and grandparents, and then you take that and share that with your children, and then they share it with their children, and it just continues. And so depending on where you came from in the world, heritage wise, a lot of times you bring words with you. Do you know what these words mean? Speaking of vocabulary, do you know what a hap is? Do you know what is meant by a piece down the road? Do you know what an angleworm is? Do you know what salad beans are? Do you know what gum bands are? How about a spritz? How about a bite? How about a roasting ear? So, a hap is a blanket. An angleworm is an earthworm. Saying a piece down the road means go down the road a little while, maybe 100 feet, maybe a half a mile, a piece down the road. Salad beans are just that, a different type of bean. Spritz, which is like a spritz. If you're trying to wet your hair, maybe a spritz. Gum bands are another word for rubber bands. A lot of times you'll hear older people in our area call rubber bands gum bands. A bite simply means go out to get something to eat. You want to go out and get a bite? If you say that to a person from a foreign country and they're taking you very literally, they think you mean you want to bite them. And then a roasting ear is another word for corn on the cob, a roasting ear. A belly whomper, you probably haven't heard of that. That's an old-timey term. That simply means that is a type of sled that you jump on belly first to go down a hill. And a whistle pig is another word for a gopher. So I don't know if you remember the old Winnie the Pooh cartoon had a gopher in it that whenever he talked, he whistled because of his teeth. His voice would whistle through those teeth. So a lot of times those animals will be called whistle pigs. Rutchy, I bet many of you are rutchy right now listening to this. Rutchy means squirmy or just like maybe your knees bopping up and down, or maybe your hands fidgety. A kid that can't sit still is rutchy. How do you pronounce these words? I'm gonna put the word up there. I'm gonna give you a minute, or not a minute, maybe a second or so to kind of pronounce it out loud. So when you see the word, pronounce it out loud and see if it matches how I pronounce it. That's wash. But is there anybody out there that says wash? I bet there is. Cement. I wonder if anybody out there says cement. That's creek. I wonder how many people out there said crick. It's not uncommon in this area. That's iron. Anybody say iron? That's get, not get. Get. Bury. Yeah, bury. That word will come back up later. Do you say caught or cot? Caught, you caught the crook and you sleep on a cot. But I bet if you're in New England, you can't tell the difference between caught and cot. I bet you caught a criminal in Boston. Do you say fire or do you say fire? Do you stretch out that second syllable? If you said Shrewsbury, is it Shrewsbury or is it Shrewsbury? Properly pronounced, it's Shrewsbury. My wife works in one of these. It's a library, not a library. Anybody say water, water, or it's water? How about these? Anybody extend that second syllable? Make it a two-syllable word, tire. Root, is it root? This is one I found out when I started dating my wife. Licorice, not licorice, licorice. Do you say Lancaster or Lancaster? Locals around this area say Lancaster. People from outside the area call it Lancaster. Is it caramel or caramel? Caramel or caramel? Do you say garage or garage and drop that A? How about roof? Do you say roof or do you say roof? Do you say piano or piano? Probably most of you say piano. Is it oil or Earl? Sometimes people throw an R in there. How about syntax? Now, in Pennsylvania Dutch, which is kind of the area in which you are, if you said throw the cow over the fence some hay, I wouldn't know what you mean. But if you take a look at that sentence literally, throw the cow over the fence some hay, it makes no sense at all. But I understand that you mean that there's a cow on the other side of that fence and you're throwing that cow some hay over the fence. That's syntax. That means the way you arrange your verbiage. And if you watch the Yoda video a little later, you'll know what I mean. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we do come from all over the place. Our country is indeed a melting pot, and we're bringing all kinds of facets of our cultures with us. And one of those things is our language, our dialects. And therefore, our vocabulary, our pronunciations, they're different, but it's what makes us us. As we've been saying all along in this culture unit, culture is all about the puzzle pieces that make us uniquely us. And so we have to ask you the question, do you speak American? And is it American? Probably the most popular term to discuss in this particular language or dialect discussion is, do you say soda? Do you say Coke? Do you say pop? And some other areas have different terminology. So for instance, Western PA, all the way out to Oregon and Washington, the north part of the country, they'll say pop for a soft drink. Coke, the origins of Coca-Cola are out of the Atlanta area, so predominantly the South, where Coke is king, it's a soft drink is called Coke. Our area, we call a carbonated beverage a soda. And different parts of the country call it different things, tonic, fizz, all kinds of different. It's one of those unique words that, wherever you go in the country, if they say, let's say you want a Coke, you say, can I have a Coke? And they say, you want a Pepsi? Or you maybe say, I want a Pepsi. They say, you want a Coke? Sometimes it's just synonymous. So that pop versus soda debate kind of rages throughout the United States. And really, as long as they know you mean a carbonated beverage, that's all that really matters. So dialect, language, it is one of those very important parts of our unique culture. It's one of those puzzle pieces that makes us us.